Yeah.
50-50.
Well, things can go on if you fail. Are you going to buy them?
Okay, I'm fine. Well, I'm getting it. You can have yours on because we don't want these on.
Have you come back from Sharm Sheikh? You came back from Egypt today, did you?
Not what I thought.
Right, thank you all for coming. The apologies.
Julia, Ian, Richard and Councillor Smith.
There is no declarations of interest at the moment, but we'll move straight on to...
Can I just mention that I should be making a representation on behalf of Marchington Village Hall. That's something very interesting. But as I'm the trustees,
Yeah.
and also, obviously, I'm a shareholder of the shop, so
Well, you're going to have to go in the corner, I'm afraid.
tell me the appropriate time.
Yeah. Okay. Right, thank you very much. Right. If we start with Mr. Cameron.
Yes. Should I speak from here? Or
You can speak from there.
or again speak?
You're making a representation about the Turkey Farm, which, although we know it's not in our parish, we know it's on the border of the parish.
And that is exactly why I was going to say who I am. I'm Mick Carroll. I live in Coppice Barn, which is part of the Mole Hollow development that Roger Mercer did, the applicant. And
This is the rest.
this is the rest. This is Jerry and Jane from Hillswood, and Karen and Steve from Willows. Unfortunately, the fourth member of the Barns, they're away on holiday. Not for them, unfortunate, but they would have been here otherwise. We work as a management company looking after the ground around us. And Jim and Julie, who live in the farm, are also away. But because they're tenants of Roger Mercer, they're in a difficult position. So they support us, but quietly. The reason we're here as intruders, for which I apologise, is, as you said, we're actually on the the boundary of Abbots Bromley and Marchington parishes. But because so many of you use Hob Lane, I think it's important you're aware of the situation. So apologies for intruding on your meeting. The main grounds, I'm not going to go all the way through. You've seen the submission, it's quite long, and I put in. It's only got my name on it, but actually I think the rest of the management company are generally in agreement with it and may well put in submissions which are similar. But by and large, we tend to agree in committee that that's what we want to object about. And others will think of finer points that I've missed out. The main grounds are noise, smell, access. And if I talk about the noise and the smell first, you will appreciate that the barns that have been developed and which we now live in, I've been there 3.5 years, are directly downwind from the prevailing wind of the proposed turkey factory. I'm not going to call it a farm, it's a factory. And the turkeys, we understand, are 5,000 each of the 100-metre sheds, and they're never going to leave the sheds. So it's not a farm, it's a factory. One of our main concerns is the disposal of the turkey manure, which they say they're going to spread on the fields at least 3 times a year when they change all the turkeys around. 3 lots a year. Living where we are, we're used to muck spreading. I mean, used to the extent that, I mean, Mercer's land butts right up to our gardens. Particularly my garden, which faces west. And I'm used to picking out all the silage that gets sprayed into my garden by mistake, or I accept now and again that if if weed killer goes onto the ground, it will kill some of the grass that I've got down. And that happens, but I live with that. But the thought of turkey manure being sprayed up onto my land, I'm not so happy about. Equally, I have no idea what chemicals are being used on the ground, and we own 5 dogs, small dogs. Our neighbours also have dogs. I'm quite worried about the effect on domestic animals. So there's a health risk, not only to domestic animals, but also, I think, to ourselves. So leaving that bit alone, I think the more important thing for all of us is the access. Hob Lane is not a wide road, and Alex Mercer, when he came and spoke to us, said that it was going to be 2.5 lorries a week. I don't believe it. All he's counting are the input of foodstuffs to the 2 massive barns. I mean, if you're going to move 10,000 turkeys 3 times a year, you don't move them very quickly. I think it's called lifting when you actually move them. So that's going to happen at least 3 times a year. And then there's all the visitors, inspections, maintenance and other service items. So I think 2.5 vehicles is pretty consistent. We did challenge Alex Mercer when he came to talk to us about his expansion plans. Now the field that the proposed site is in is a massive field. The 200-metre sheds that he's putting in will take up, I don't know, 20% of it. There's room for many more. And I think, if he's got any sense, he would have in his 5-year business plan some kind of thought of expansion. He claimed not to have so. But I'm afraid we have found Alex Mercer wanting on some of the facts. So I'm very worried about possible expansion also, which would make it a nightmare. If he does go to expand, it would make the traffic problem even worse. Now, people who use Hob Lane, apart from ourselves, are walkers, equestrians, cyclists, runners. The Toxteth Half Marathon use the lane regularly. All these people. And as you know, there are very few places where pedestrians, horses, etc. can actually take refuge if a large vehicle comes up the lane. Passing was always a little problem, and unless you have a pretty substantial vehicle. I mean, I drive a Mini. There's no way I'm putting a Mini onto those verges with the gullies and ditches we have. So what do you expect me to do if I meet an HGV coming in the way? I'm not alone, other people have smaller cars than 4x4s and everything else. So the traffic is a real worry to pedestrians, dog walks and everybody else. And I have to say also to the wildlife. I mean, yesterday driving to Toxteth, there were so many quails and pheasants around. I had to stop 4 times. I would hate to see, I don't mind stopping flying, it's great. I love it. But, that's a small thing. Now the interesting thing is that if you refer to the planning application that Roger Mercer put in to develop the barns within, the agent stroke consultant that he employed stated, and I put it in my report, he stated that Hob Lane was totally unsuitable to HGVs and service traffic. What's changed in 5 years? Nothing. So he may have shot himself in the foot, and I certainly hope so.
Can I ask you, Nick, when he spoke with Mr. Mercer,
Sorry?
when he spoke with Mr. Mercer, did he tell you why he's proposing to develop it where
Yes.
it is, as opposed
To support his family.
no,
And
the location of it, why here as opposed to anywhere else?
Because he has 30 other farms you can look at. Is that
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
so
getting
why here?
at?
Where there is no other development because he sold the farm buildings to
Well, when he actually developed the barns, he looked at several possibilities with the industrial units, which is why they came to the conclusion that wasn't a good idea because of the access to it, not suitable for HGVs and service vehicles. And they happened to have the land, and they had a farmhouse nearby. So I think in their planning application, they're saying that this is an extension of the farm. It's over, well, it's half a kilometre away. It's hardly an extension to the farm facilities. But when we asked, I think we did ask whether there were any alternative sites considered, and he couldn't answer the question. So
the reason I'm questioning that is the reasons that you've already talked about to object. I don't think it's right to say that the muck is going to be a health hazard because chicken muck is already sprayed on the grounds now, as in backhouses do.
yeah, it's not.
So what I'm saying is,
totally.
I don't think you can really argue that.
Very smelly though.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
trying to help you to...
No, okay, fine. Well, the reason I mention it is if I talk personally about it, we have 5 small dogs, and my wife does agility with them. They are valuable dogs, and when we do get stuff sprayed off, if they eat any of the stuff that's sprayed on the house,
it won't be toxic because they spray it on the ground.
with small dogs, anything upsets their stomach, I tell you, and it's not pleasant. So,
yeah, that's a very strong argument.
okay.
HTVs, they already use that lane now, HTVs do.
Yes, they do. And it's difficult.
Trying to help you, I've been playing devil's advocate.
That's all right, that's fine. Yes, and we do tend to give way and try and peep into a gateway if we see a tractor and trailer coming the other way. I mean, that's just being polite.
A strong argument I feel you may have is the location of it as opposed to your dogs and things, which I don't think is a really valid argument. But certainly the location of it and the size of it, I feel you may be better.
Yeah, there's three big.
Yeah, the big buildings in an area where there is no development along like that.
And what's the proximity to your
Well,
house?
Alex Mercer says it's 700 metres. I think it's less. We've not actually placed it out without trespassing on his land, so I think it's between 500 and 600 metres away. I mean, he measured it from his farm to the proposed site. We are in between.
What is Abbots Bromley Parish Council's view?
We're seeing them
Next week.
next
week after.
Yeah, in the next 2 weeks. They're meeting, they won't meet until the 25th. So we're going to see that.
Just how far is this factory, as you called it? Because I don't know this area at all. Really.
Right, okay.
I live in Fargo, Marchington, so I'm from a distance, if you like. How far is the distance from your home to the environment?
We think it's, well, we've not measured it, but Alex Mercer says it's 700 metres. I think it's less.
Do you want to put
So,
that there?
No, you're right.
That was coming.
Straight on round there, you're...
Oh, we're there. Oh, gosh. He is here. I think that is the pond with the Great Crescent News in it. So I think he's just here. There's now a track that comes through here. And there's a gateway there. If you drive down Hog Lane, you'll see it. It's got a blue chain on it. And that's,
So you're saying it's 500 yards and he's saying it's 700, is that fair?
well, we're not convinced it's 700 metres.
Okay, well, because that's going on towards a kilometre, isn't it?
The other people who are objecting, or who would object, are the people who live in high trees. And they're only 4 metres. But we got the and you're the same distance I was.
Found out the other day we did have a letter regarding the meeting next week. So
Yeah, that's probably
You will all write down as objection.
Sorry?
You will all write down as objection to SPC.
Individual.
Yes.
Not his copied.
It's important to be all right, is it?
Individual writing is allowed.
Not exactly the same.
Yeah.
With the difference the same.
I'm not identical to
And that's the proposed site.
Well, it's just
What's your electricity supply?
yes.
Presumably he's going to install generators because it's not power. But he's got to, otherwise it's 2 hours, 3 days, 2 hours.
Well, it's
Like an extractor factory.
It's not going to have probably another way.
So you get noise from that.
Yeah, that's what we, that's not. But it's always been saying he's not
bad access.
proposing to have separate generators.
Yeah.
It's about to
We
have
have assumed
Well, we
he's
have
going to be
so many-
There's nothing in the plans to say that.
Sorry.
There's nothing in the plans to say that.
Isn't
No,
that
it's
factory in
that
Scotland?
so you can't
Is it easy enough to add on this?
In Scotland.
And the water's from a borehole.
So if you
proposing to take the
turns
water
right
that
out
it's from
factory
a
from a
borehole.
borehole, the lane.
Yeah, there's no water there, is there?
Well, you say that.
There's only properties that fall below
Using
4 pints, there's no main
Sat
water.
brings you in to our place. And all this
What I would say is to
Taps go
to
and
help
ends up with mains water,
speak
is the
and
main run.
make your representation to
James
Aberystwyth
is
Parish
that's
Council.
the main.
In the meantime, we'll speak with Aberystwyth Parish Council and see what their opinion is, and then yeah.
I think
I was going to with your dogs and everything. I know it's not. I know they mean a lot to you, but it's not really. Yeah.
Maximum number of cows. And not identical to the fact that you all... So the whole thing, it's not identical, they're like cat on 1, not 20.
yes,
But as somebody quite rightly said, you need to write, everyone needs to write their own specific letter. It mustn't be a copy. They're giving a script won't work. So they've got to write their own letter in their own way. To make their own particular.
Great call, I thought it was. Well, it's on the
He's on planning board. He was chair, so I will have a word with him very, very quickly.
So people, the biggest
Register your complaint. As I say, because it's outside our practice, we will speak with our Sprung and do that. Thank you very much for coming down.
Well, thank you for your time. That's really helpful.
Well, you can stay, you're more than welcome to stay, but you can go.
Yeah, no one's staying.
Go through Marchington.
Linda pointed out that R6 is only come through sat out.
Is there anything that you point out?
Anybody else have a anything?
If that point's been made.
Yeah. Okay, well, as I say, we will speak with Aberystwyth Parish Council, and, you know, if need be, you know, if we all around the table agree, we'd write a letter, you know, supporting your case as well.
And you're advising us to talk to Greg Hall?
Definitely, definitely.
He's your ward now.
He's definitely, and even Andrew Griffiths, if you know, the MP.
Okay.
I think the best...
If you talk to Linda Nice, she'll give you his email.
Found it, don't worry.
Set out, also for the letter, set out the main points of what's covered individually, but individuals, they do in different order, their own work. That helps, so then points aren't left out by the second.
Okay. Right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to stay or depart.
We both just don't go anymore.
You're
staying away.
Thank you very much.
Interesting stuff.
Yes, open your mouth wide.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm very brief, so I'm going to stay here. Thank you very much. But I'm going to be very brief, so by way of change, I'm here for planning tonight, which is amazing. What I am here tonight, and by the way, thank you for giving me a slot to speak on behalf of the Marchington Community Shop Board. Firstly, I've been asked to say thank you for the £200 donation towards the replacement of our decrepit fridges. Really appreciated. The board feels that really during our recent interactions between ourselves and the parish council, misunderstandings may have developed on both sides, and we would like just to take a moment to briefly restate what we passionately believe to be the role of the shop and where it stands in the parish. As I'm sure you know, the shop is a not-for-profit organisation run by a board made of voluntary directors. The organisation complies with the strict rules and regulations laid down by the Plunkett Foundation. A shop committee runs the week-to-week activities alongside a part-time shop manager. Other part-time, paid employees and volunteers carry out all the other duties to keep the shop functioning. Probably, except for the village school, the biggest employer in the village is the shop. We directly employ 5 local people who share a payroll of 37 paid hours, plus a paper boy paid separately. Additionally, we are training a local young man who finds it really difficult to get permanent employment in bookkeeping. The objective being to move him into a full-time role within a local accountant's office. We pay him a weekly fixed sum. We're also, as an organisation, working towards paying the living wage for all our staff. We supported a young lady from the village called Amy Shepherd through a college called in retail management, which she duly completed and went on to a full-time role in Elks in New Tuxeter. We've also helped a number of young folks with the Duke of Edinburgh Awards by providing voluntary work experience opportunities for them. We have 50 plus volunteers who give the time to directly and indirectly man the shop and keep it functioning. For lots of those volunteers, it is one of their key social interactions. In the same way, visiting shop is one of the few social opportunities for many of the elderly, more elderly customers in the shop. The shop is a key social centre within the village. We have, by way of business, we've got 124 newspaper accounts, 30 of which are those servicing the Woodlands area. Most receive daily deliveries, come rain, come shine. And we deliver groceries to housebound villagers and take deliveries of prescriptions for carers. We have an active parcel service and a mail drop-off facility and provide a dry cleaning service. We have a monthly fruit and vegetable market and a popular wine, beer and spirits section. We sell tickets on behalf of every local society and display the parish council documents when required. For instance, at the moment we currently display the Neighbourhood plan documents in a prominent position in the shop. The key reduction in turnover during the last 2 years has not been due to lower footfall, but to the cancelling of the newspaper contract by Dovegate Prison in favour of a cheaper national contract supplier. More than 200 parishioners actively subscribe to our regular newsletter. We have a busy website that is often referenced by the community shop environment across the country as a good example of what can be achieved. The existence of the shop is also in line with Staffordshire County Council's rural area strategy, which is to maintain and build capability for people to stay in their own homes. The cash management and accounts are run to strict guidelines like any commercial retail outlet. Daily till reconciliation down to the penny takes place and any imbalances are fully followed through, which occasionally results in volunteer retraining. Management accounts are controlled by a registered chartered accountant and annual auditing is undertaken by an external accountancy company. However, despite our best efforts ever involved, the catchment area of the shop and the shopping habits of the busy modern householder means that the business is constantly in need of additional sources of income. The shop has therefore been active in fundraising via, for an example, open gardens initiatives, scarecrow competitions, county council grants, and a very supportive dog and partridge landlord, etc., etc. This is also why we have approached the parish council for help. So, based on the above, we would hope that you will be able to view the shop as a valuable asset to the community. If you do, then we would ask you to consider granting the shop a precept in the current and future financial years, in much the same way as you do to both churches, both village halls and other organisations. Finally, on a point of detail, if the parish council does decide to discuss and votes on our request, we would respectfully suggest that any councillors who own shares in the shop should not have to exclude themselves from the discussions and subsequent vote. The shares, for calling them that, are no more than a one-off donation given to contribute to the opening cost of the shop, which is now more than 5 years ago. They don't carry voting rights or enjoy any dividends. In a similar way, you'd not expect any councillor who's put perhaps £10 in the church collection tray to exempt themselves from voting when the church precept is up for renewal. Also, I'd suggest that a councillor who is fully paid up member of the Tennis and Bowls Club would not be excluded from voting. Thank you very much for your time, and obviously happy to answer any questions now or after the event. Thanks for your time.
I would like to just supplement that wearing my shop hat. I've got the constitution of the shop here, and I'll read you 2 paragraphs, that's all. Paragraph 3, which is the object of the shop, reads, "The objects of the association shall be for the benefit of the community, represented by the association referred to in Rule 2, which is the name of the shop, to sustain, encourage, provide, facilitate or resuscitate village retail enterprises, and in particular shops, public houses and garages, including the acquisition of land, construction, improvement, alteration or adapting of buildings or dwelling houses, and any other functions ancillary, supplemental or incidental to such objectives. The important point being there be sustain, encourage, provide, facilitate or resuscitate village retail enterprises." I read you one other, which is application of any surpluses we make, which we haven't done so far. "The association," that's the shop, "shall not trade for profit. Any surplus shall be applied as follows, in such manner and in such proportion as may be decided by a general meeting. A. To a general reserve for the continuation and development of the association. B. To make payments for social or charitable purposes compatible with the objects of the association." So the point of these remarks is to back up what Mike has just said, and that is we're not a commercial enterprise, although we try and operate commercially. We are, in fact, as the title of the shop says, we are a community shop, and it's for the community that the objectives are set out. It is therefore very disappointing we heard last time that you didn't quite understand this. And like Michael, and as chairman of the shop, I would also be asking for a precept, which I think should be in similar terms to what the church has, which is £2,000, and the village hall has £2,000. And this should continue until such time as we feel we come back to you and say we don't need it. I should also tell you, and the audited accounts have now been done, and I prepare them, and Anna, our auditor, is a chartered accountant, she's got to sign them off. We made, trading-wise, we made a £4,000 loss after depreciation last year. That includes depreciation. But in total, when you look at the account, there is a surplus, because that £4,000 was overtaken by, I think it was £1,500 or something thereabouts for events, grants, what have you, coming from County Council and from the Open Gardens Day. So there we are. We survive because we're given grants and have events and do activities outside the shop. But as a commercial entity, if I was organising it and asking somebody to run it commercially as a chartered accountant, I could say it's not viable. It does need outside help. And the main purpose of it is, as we've already said, is community. It's not there mainly for a commercial purpose.
Thank you very
Can I
much.
make one point with the difference? The church situation. If Marchington and Woodlands churches decided they could no longer look after churches anymore, that responsibility would come on the parish council. So there is a definite reason for supporting the churches.
Yes, you mean the actual buildings themselves?
No.
137.
Why would the churches? I think that'd be-
We would have to take it on.
The Precept Church Council, which is liable under subsection 1 of the right to maintain a closed churchyard, may, if the church open a parish or community having a separate parish or community council, serve a written request from that council to take over the maintenance of the churchyard.
The churchyard?
Churchyard.
Not the building?
Not the building, the churchyard.
Churchyard, well, that's kind of stringly put in.
Yeah.
Huge expense. It's a huge expense.
Yes, it is. I know, particularly the church accounts.
By the way, just as a demo, this is not anti other people who get to the precept at all. It's just, we're just, and you know, that's absolutely fine. It's a village that we all feel should be supported in all directions if possible. There's not a limitless pot, and we understand that, Mr. Chairman, but as hopefully we've been able to say, and thank you for giving us that opportunity, we believe we are an essential cog in the village, that if it died, then it would be, many people say, a really sad loss, not just us.
Just to correct you on one matter, it's all councillors have to sign a declaration. And so you can't say you don't feel it's right. It's the law, we have to abide by that. Every councillor has to declare an interest. And the fact that they've donated money to the shop, that is an interest.
But what's the difference between that and donating
I
to the
can't,
shop?
I can't fill you in on all the legal bits, but that is what you signed when you sat at this table.
I guess, Mr Chairman, what we ask for is an understanding of where a donation, as I've done a probably reasonable comparison, I think, between donating to the church is in what way dissimilar to donating to the shop.
Because they sit in here as the parish council.
But, so is everybody around this table then not going to declare a declaration?
It just explained the church Precept is because we are supporting the church, because if we didn't, we would have to pay for everything.
Anyway.
So it's not...
Including the...
So it never gets voted on?
Everybody means heavyweight player.
No.
It never gets voted on then?
No, because we would have to do it anyway. So it's
a legal requirement.
Yeah. So it's cheaper for us to support the church than it is not to.
Absolutely fine.
So there's no comparison at all.
The church in terms of the churchyard.
Churchyard.
The buildings. Yeah.
That wasn't the case with the Catholic Church then, obviously.
Did you mention
No. No. But
It's the word parish, isn't it?
But they should that anyway, and decommissioned it, so they didn't. Yeah. But anyway,
Okay.
your thoughts on it. Thank you very much, and aware that Isabel sat there. So,
Yeah, I've just come on behalf of Woodlands Village Hall. I think you've had a letter from Julie,
yeah.
I believe, asking for the Precept grant. We're on sort of stage 5 now of the village hall. We've worked really hard over the last 5 years to improve the building, get it watertight and insulate it, and we have saved costs on heating. That's been a big, help to us on running costs. Our running costs is quite a lot each year. And our main last project now is to obviously improve the car park, which we have struggled because there's not many grants available to help with car parking. The car park as it stands at the moment has been there 50 years. It's very uneven. We've had a few issues with people falling in the area, falling into water holes over the last few years. We have tried to light it better now, which has made a bit of difference. But it is the last stage before we still want to purchase new tables. The tables are very old. They've been here 40 years, the tables that we use outside. These ones are not suitable for all the functions that are needed now in the hall. So again, the Precept money we're looking for is to help with the car park. We have had a grant. We have had a couple of estimates, which is going to cost about £25,000 to do the whole area and drain it as well. So
I'm just talking about this bit at the back here.
all the comes round to different areas.
Oh, onto the front?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that will be also drained in, that's all in the draining, curbing all round, and getting the better access on the front.
How much are you asking for?
Yeah, it's what you're asking for.
Well, I think Julie's put in £5,000.
Wow. Okay.
Have you got any grants coming from
No,
outside
we
the system?
haven't, no.
Are you applying for them?
We're going to apply for them, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do recommend that you do try, because
You get them.
there's quite a lot of demands on us at the moment.
Mm.
I think if you can get a grant for disabled tarmac
Yes,
area,
yes.
you can't for the rest of it.
No, that's right. You can, if you put disabled parking in there, you can get a bit of...
You can't get grants for the tarmac. The Marchington Village Hall, tarmac is a small area if you notice. by the front.
Smooth.
And that's so that, yes, disabled people can get in their wheelchairs, but also for safety because there's some huge falls. But the whole car park can come to a non-house ground.
Could you claim, therefore, that the entrance onto the side, before you got to the actual car park, could be part of a grant?
No, it wasn't. In Marchington Parish case, they had to find funds within themselves.
Because I thought you said a second ago that you could have tarmacking under a grant for disabled people.
No, what I'm saying is we did it. The village hall in Marchington did it to enable.
Oh, I see. You didn't get a grant for it. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Thank you.
Can I ask just one question? I presume that's a one-off, is it? The 5,000? It's a one-off.
Yes.
This is, so what you're asking for is 3 plus 2, is that what you're saying?
2 plus 3 again.
2 plus 5.
2 plus 5.
2
No,
plus
I
additional.
think they meant 5 in total.
5 in total.
5 in
Total.
Total.
Oh, okay.
Is that including all
Well,
the
you'll see the letter when we get to Precept.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You're more than welcome to stay.
So the Woodlands Council were responsible for this site as well, like the village hall in March.
No, we don't own this. Who does actually own it?
The trust, I think.
It's a trust, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It's Marchington Village Hall is owned by the parish council.
Right, I'm learning. I knew that, but I thought therefore this would be too. So it's
No,
different.
it's a trust.
Right. Moving on to the minutes of the last.
Sorry, can I?
Oh, yes,
Sorry. Yeah,
So you want to make it clear as well, right?
Yeah, you did say yes. I'm sorry.
Marchington Village Hall, you will have had a letter from Wendy Scott, the acting secretary for the village hall.
Can you say that we did the other precept?
Yes, that's fine.
We'll have a separate item for that.
We've got a separate item.
Have we? No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Used to walk.
Oh, I see. Fighting that, don't you?
Right. The minutes of the last meeting, which we've all got a copy.
I'm happy to propose.
Thank you, Gordon.
I'll second it.
Were you there, right?
I was, I don't think so. Yes, well, yes. Yes, I was, it says.
Well, it must be right then. Thank you very much. Right. Move on to planning.
You decide.
I haven't signed it yet. Well, if we start with the two applications, one being the correction of the two-car garage and workshop, the storage area built at Woodlands Cottage, Thornley Lanes, Marchington Woodlands. So, if you want to have a look at what it is, this is the...
Looked at it.
It just seems a bit big, that's what I'm looking for.
It does use the word building, which is interesting.
The only comment I've got is that there's a bit bigger plan. Is that it looks like a house.
That's right.
It looks a very pretty house if you imagine the doors, blocked in.
Capable of being converted, in other words.
Yeah, and it's sufficiently far away from the rest of the way.
It's also about half the size of the original house. If you look at if
Do you
you
want to
take
say
that as the correct proportion.
Yeah.
So it might make a nice little two-bedroom cottage.
Are they okay?
You can switch them on, don't you want one on?
Yeah, I do.
It mentions somewhere about timber clad,
Where are they? Just about.
Just switches down there.
which seemed to be top and everything else is brick.
Sorry, Dave, I missed that bit. You think it's...
Somewhere it mentioned, I'm sure, timber cladding on the building. Which seems
Timber
a bit-
cladding?
Yeah, I presume.
Don't let that go up a brick.
Ren. That's it.
Should we say any objections to the nature of the appearance of the structure to a house?
It is striking.
So you're striking a suggestion that possible long-term litigation. Could you go through that?
No, it's good.
No, they won't.
It's all right, it's on the form.
That
What about
would be
the
acceptable
lighting?
because they they're not applying for it as a house. You have to look at it as what they're applying for it, regardless of what you think they
Or
might do.
do we think the building as proposed is appropriate?
Well, this is...
Well, it's no different, I suppose, to next doors, is it? Brian Greensmith. He's got a big garage and workshop on the
Which is a
opposite
precedent,
side of the
isn't
lane.
it? Okay.
Okay.
Would you feel comfortable? I think it comes up. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Well,
From my side, I'm quite happy.
it doesn't affect me.
No, just the area. You live in the area. We do.
Well, no, I mean, they haven't got a garage. If they want to park cars, they've still got plenty of parking room, plus the garage. And they're already on the work for the house, which was approved previously.
They had a very big extension, didn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, because it was a duchy house.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but unfortunately, in planning terms, you can't sort of comment on what you think it might be.
Oh no, you've got no choice on that. That's what you send us on courses for to start with.
Sorry?
That's what you send us on courses for.
You should have gone.
You have to report that later in the meeting.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so no objection, no comment. And the other one is, as we've heard earlier, is the... No, it isn't. This is the two agricultural...
Yes.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Is the turkey farm in Hob Lane.
That's all intended, though, isn't it? I'm sympathetic to the
Yeah. I mean, that's what they were
Traffic
referring to.
documents for it.
I mean, it's massive.
It's 200 metres long, there's two of them, and we've got 10,000 birds in them.
And you've got access coming out the front in there.
Not as if they can object on this basis, but I suspect there is just outside the park. The same applicant put up buildings on Green
Yeah, I
Hill.
saw it. Yeah,
And
by
they-
50.
Yes, and no, we does all the work.
38, I mean.
Yeah.
And then what's happened? There's another match going alongside,
Yeah.
2 years down the line.
Well, that's
Which is
yeah.
exactly
what
what
they
they
do.
said.
But you can't say that, can you?
Well, you
It's
could,
not planning matter.
you could put a stop on it by simply saying that this is the maximum allowance you make for the area in proportion to the scenery point of view, not scenery, but to the area itself. So if you're starting to actually, you could actually ask for us on planning committee, but stage you could ask for it to be restricted to these two buildings.
Isabel, what's your opinion on it? Because you're...
Yeah, I mean, we were very surprised because I mean, I know when there was all the fuss regarding the wind turbines and everything that was and we had all these surveys. I mean, I know when we had the gas line that came up, you know, through us, and we had no question about what was going to be done about it. And all these protesters came up from London. There was about 37 people in the fields protesting because of moving the badges and things like that, and the gas line just comes straight through it, you know, totally all, and they actually moved it because of the wildlife issue. There was a great lot of research done for wildlife, which is up in the woods there, and on those fields, that was where the majority of it was done. So I just cannot understand how on earth they're going to, you know, the bird, wildlife and everything, you know. And I mean, you commented on about the manure, and I mean that's a real big, you know, the ammonia from Turkey, and it's absolutely terrible, you know. You know, it's full of antibiotics. They're pumped every minute of the day that they're standing up, really, you know. It's,
But you have Turkey in there.
sorry? Yeah.
What's your Turkey?
Yes, definitely.
So would you like, because obviously, you know, you're in our parish, would you like to see the parish council comment on the application?
I wouldn't be in proposal of it, no, I would,
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, my concern is the size of it.
It is the size and the proportion of it, yes.
Yeah. And there isn't anything else there.
No.
I didn't see how you could object to the lorries.
No.
to be honest, they've got to deliver, and I didn't see that 2 lorries a week, or he dumped it 4, but actually
Well, all the lorries are moved at night on turkey units.
are they?
Because there's one near my sister's, and all the transportation is done at night because it doesn't disturb the birds.
Oh, see, imagine
You know,
that.
because, and all the feed is moved at night as well. So
So
That,
that's a waste of time.
that would upset the residents. Then.
yes, it would. Yeah, they come sort of 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, I the only thing
Yeah,
I
big
would
blows
say
blowing
in our protest
Yes,
blowing it up into the terrace.
Blow corner,
we should,
yes, yeah, and
protect
that's
the
when
area from,
dead stock is moved as well
Mm.
because of the smell.
Well, I don't think we should even contemplate, if it's granted, it's completely inappropriate to the area. There is no other building.
We can still comment on it. It's
Yeah.
like our area.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, based on what his letter says.
They've got a resident. You are resident.
Yeah. Please, yeah.
And circulate it, and then you can.
Yeah, so I strongly object to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Thanks, Isabel.
Still take things on by translating it back into feet. I just suddenly realised 200 metres is 700 feet. It's a hell of a length.
Planning permission.
Appendix B is after the.
Oh yeah, the planning permission that were approved is the erection of a 2-storey extension at 13 Arborfield Road. And then the other one is the electricity generating plant, which has been started in. I'm not quite sure what's happening with that yet.
Well, it looks like it's going to go to planning committee on the 15th of December. Now I had Stephen Smith has spoken to TCG, and I understand from Roy Armour, who is the gentleman from TCG, he's requested this morning, well this afternoon, he phoned me. He's requested that, I have an email here, he's requested that he meet with the parish council to discuss it. He thinks we've been misinformed. And he wants to meet with the parish council. I did tell him that we had a parish council meeting tonight, and he said he couldn't do that. I said the next parish council meeting was the 8th, and he said, well, he couldn't do that, but if it goes to planning committee meeting on the 15th, that would be short notice anyway. So he's asked, and he's given some dates when he's available, and said, would we have a meeting with him, just a extraordinary meeting with him. The dates he's given on the 18th of November, the 23rd of November, 24th of November, 25th of November, 30th of November, and 1st of December. But what you need to decide is, do you feel that it would help you to meet him, or would it be of any use to meet him?
Well, I would suggest that rather than having an extraordinary meeting, is 1, 2, or however many want to go meet with him, rather than actually just hold a council meeting. And then
Really,
report back
the
at the
onus
next
is on him to make
Yeah.
himself
Yeah,
available
it's
to come
not
to us. We've already
Yeah.
submitted our comments, straight objection. But
I think we should arrange his directly here.
Yeah.
it should be. Yeah. But
Yes,
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
priorities, right.
if you wish to meet with him, fine.
I'm more than happy to meet with him. I agree with you wholeheartedly that he should change his diary to be with us. But I think because it's quite an important thing, and the government at the moment are
It's
talking
a very
about.
hot topic.
Yeah, so I think the more information we can get from him, I think would be, in case there's another one appearing.
So what you're suggesting, you will meet with him and then report back to us on the 8th of December?
Yeah. Rather than
Excellent. Excellent.
Because, and then if it's not going until the 15th, we can then pass judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, so right,
Mr Chairman, I'd like to request an MDAG permission for an MDAG representative to be at that meeting, please.
Don't think that's
no.
Why is that? Because this is unfair lobbying on behalf of the applicant, as I see it. If he's not coming to a parish council meeting, then a private meeting shouldn't take place, is my opinion.
Fair comment.
That's a fair comment.
Fair comment.
That's why we say he should change his date.
Right, comment.
He's obviously wants me to try and turn it.
Yeah. I mean, he's been given 2 dates.
Yeah. And why is he left it
Why
as
is he
late
left
as
it
this?
so late?
I think it was a suggestion by Stephen Smith that he, because when I spoke to Stephen, he talked about them having an exhibition, but because the planning application was gone in, he didn't know whether it was protocol for them to have an exhibition after the after the application's gone in. So, but I don't know whether it is or it isn't, because Stephen didn't say whether it was.
Is Stephen going to meet?
Not as far as I know. Presumably, if we arrange a meeting date, he may decide to come, but he didn't say to me that he was his
I personally might see no harm in the chairman for the meeting because they will report back to the parish council. No decisions will be made.
I understand your comment, Gordon, but I object completely and utterly. If he's so keen on making his point, then he should make it to the whole council, not a private
He should put himself out, I agree.
To a one-to-one meeting is not appropriate and could be seen as inappropriate legal.
Yeah, because he'll report back.
Anyway,
No.
I'd like to express my objection to it, and if it does take place, I'd like to request that an MDAG representative be there, please.
Well, I'm sorry, Mike, but how the parish council's doing its work, and I think it should be left
okay,
to it.
if that's the case then.
I'm not sure that...
Okay, if that's the case then...
You're going to have everybody coming along, where do we start?
I personally think that this man should be made to attend the
That's...
Yeah.
That'd be the right best thing.
That's my personal.
If you're so keen on it, then
He'll come.
he'll come.
Or he'll send somebody, he'll send his deputy. Yeah.
I agree with you. Or if you're going to go the other way, then I think Mike could go along
My
with it.
concern is that we don't know enough about what these things are. And so maybe we should ask him to attend the next parish council meeting. And if he's unable to or can't put anybody up, I don't think we should bury our heads in the sand and say, no, to hell with it then, we're going to make a blind decision based on facts that we fully understand what this thing exactly is. And
But then they had an exhibition for the solar farm. Why didn't they have an exhibition for this?
For the generating station now.
I accept that.
Because it was a landowner.
I accept that, but this is an example of we don't understand exactly what they are, why they haven't had that. Are they proposing one? We need to communicate with this chap.
Yeah,
this company.
I think that he or if he's personally not available, then he should send his deputy to actually come and speak at the parish council.
Well, surely we've already made a comment.
We've already made our comment.
Maybe as a personally, we all agree.
Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering if he came to a meeting, we made it clear that the gentleman over there filming the process would give you the information you need to do about the meeting. So it can be, you will be putting it, I take it, at the next meeting on the YouTube. So by actually suggesting that the filming is going on during that meeting, this might have some bearing on it.
Well, that's irrelevant, to be fair. Mr Chairman, can I just excuse me for making a comment here, Mr Chairman, but what I would like to say is if you read that application, and I'm not being funny, but I've read every single word because of the response I got from the AppDeck subscribers to the mailing list that forced me to read every boring single word of it. They describe completely in there what this application is all about in great detail. There is no vagary, there is nothing that's not described in that application. It's very clear what it is. It's 9 diesel generators, burning diesel, biodiesel or not, which is 2% vegetable oil. And if you look at the diagrammatic distribution of
I hear what you're saying, Nick. I hear what you're
what the
saying.
details in that
as
proposal.
As a body here at the council, we need to know, I
Understood.
would like to feel
Okay.
we need to know more about exactly what these things are. And as such, I'm quite happy to go back to them and say, come to the next council meeting. If you can't, put a representative up. And therefore, if that still doesn't get anywhere, I feel that it's important that one or more of the councillors turn up and speak with him, so that we can at least understand what this is. Because if another one comes up tomorrow, after this one's finished, we still don't fully understand what exactly these entail involving. And
well,
so
it is pretty
it is a diesel.
We know, and you know, and some of us work in those sorts of industries. So there is, yes, but I agree. It would be a lot from me gained if we can actually speak with the guy face to face.
Yeah.
Much better is that we all understand it. You'll come back. I'm not get up in these things at all, coming from outside, never having dealt with anything like this before in my life. It's all new. And I'd like to be able to make it.
So I'll ask Linda then to send a letter to him saying, can he or a representative turn up at our next parish council meeting, and we'll let you know what his response is from there, and then we'll go from there.
To which you can attend.
Sorry, Brian?
To which you can attend.
Right. Thank you. Neighbourhood planning.
We sign the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, the neighbourhood plan at the end, at midnight today, comes to the end of the consultation period. There was the initial consultations with the residents in the Marchington Village Hall, the Woodlands Village Hall, and then 4 days later for the Forest Side residents at the bar. We had a good response in the Marchington Village Hall on the Saturday morning. Not quite as many people as were at the original consultation back in March, but even so, there were some very useful discussions, and people were able to ask lots of questions about what the neighbourhood plan entailed, etc. At Woodlands, there were only a few, a handful, but obviously they obviously regard it not quite as important as the Marchington residents, although that's my view of it. The Woodlands, the Forest Side residents were certainly, we had a good turnout there, and there were a lot of questions about the barracks site, particularly. So that was a very good consultation. Many of the businesses and businesses with interest, developers, builders, etc. in the area, they have been asked for their comments.
And a lot came in today.
And I was going to say they appear to flow in rapidly in the last few days, but it's actually today, was it? Precisely today when they were flowing.
They all came in this afternoon.
Which is good.
Tax returns.
Yes, well, if you're reminiscent to that. I won't comment on any of what's come in because it's going to take quite a while to actually assimilate and go through some very interesting discussions. So it certainly provokes a lot of people into commenting, which is good.
Well, they've all got their own separate interests, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. So we have got some nitty-gritty decisions to make with the steering group in the way forward, and so we're at the stage of analysing all the responses and discussing that, and then making some decisions to present to the parish council later in the year.
We had 55 questionnaires up to now have responded, which is less than we had for the previous questionnaires, but then obviously people are getting a little bit used to questionnaires coming in. And I think if they're happy, then they probably aren't returning.
That's right.
I think it might be a case that where in the past perhaps 2 people in a household might have filled in a form, this time only 1 did. So there is an element of that.
Yeah.
And you could actually do some analysis on that as well.
Can I ask, the neighbourhood plan, I believe, is on the 18th of November now?
That's correct.
It's on what, 5 o'clock?
The steering group.
The steering group, I think, is on.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 7 o'clock at Marchington Village Hall.
Thank you very much. Local plan?
The local plan has now been agreed with.
PCF, yeah, PCF, that is.
It's now been adopted by ESBC. So it's that the fully adopted at the full council on Thursday the 15th of October 2015. You can go to their website and read it if you want. I mean, I don't think that's quite the end of the process for the local plan, is it?
No.
There's
Yes.
So the inspector has said, yes, it's okay, but...
Well, so we step in the right direction.
You've got to get there first to get to the next one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good.
Right, thank you for all those that contributed to that. So, finance, precept. The floor's still yours.
Mine?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wearing my hat as one of the village hall committee, and you have a formal letter, and we just have a formal letter. Obviously, the village hall committee has been very grateful for the past responses, supporting the village hall in terms of it's an old building that with things continually going wrong and needing renewal. Do you wish me to read out that, or just summarise it?
Summarise with putting the figures.
Basically, the village hall needs a continual replacement, repair, and actually the village hall are going to spend some money on filling potholes in the rear car park with concrete. Some as a quick solution, you might say, rather than just infilling with gravel to actually. But this is a quick, cheap fix, if you like, but that's going to cost some money. Recently, the village hall had to renew the electrics in the place to make them conform with today's standards and to conform with safety regulations. And it's these continual things that the village hall requires. Obviously, the village hall is very grateful for the proposal for the solar park money to be passed to the village hall to upgrade basically the energy efficiency of the hall, or to improve it. I'm sure that one of the things that would like to be spent on is actually renewing the flat roof, the felt and the board, so it's going rotten, and improve the insulation of the place. And also to improve the heating in the John Elwood Lounge, etc.
Yes, please do.
What the village hall is proposing to do with that is actually to consult the groups who use the village hall to actually ask what they think should be done with what they would like to see improvements there. However, that's digressing from this. Basically, the village hall is basically asking for a precept to run the village hall and to keep it in a state that is something the village is going to be proud of and can use. There have been some significant improvements recently with the doors and the floor, and these have all come about through applying for grants from the councils and matching that with the village hall funds. So the village hall continually apply for grants to improve and to make the village hall more desirable, as for the village for all ages.
Thank you very much.
Right, we've all got the Gordon's working out.
I think the second issue is the precept for this year, estimated cost.
Just before you do that, can I just say that what we've actually been asked for is £2,000 for both churches.
As per previous years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marchington, Woodlands Village Hall want 5,000, and Marchington Village Hall is 2,000. So those are.
And the shop would like to put in an application too. So we just heard about this.
We haven't said how much.
Well, I'd like to say 2,000.
And the shop 2,000.
One of them, when we got on £200, I haven't had that yet.
Will be signed tonight.
Oh, I see, okay, thank you.
Right, Woody,
Oh, sorry.
over to you.
Sorry, I've got exactly the same.
They all say that.
So the precept for 2015-16 was 31,320. Because of the neighbourhood plan, we spent a lot more than that. I estimated 34. What I'm proposing, I've listed down what we're likely to incur. I'm suggesting that we limit the precept for 2016-17 to this year's level plus rate of inflation 2.5%. That will then mean, unfortunately, we should have to freeze all of the grants to the level we gave this year, and then we consider as the year goes by if we can grant any more.
What by law is the maximum amount we can actually add on to the rate? Speak for me.
Well, they don't like you adding in.
I don't think it's the law, it's a question of think of our parishioners.
Yes, who's got to pay?
No, I understand that. I thought it was legal limit. There isn't.
Not that I noted.
I don't think ESBC would be very happy. Now,
No.
previous years it's been split as 29,400 as precept, and there's been an ESBC grant to increase it as it is in last year. Now there's no guarantee that when we hear from, yes, last year we had 29,000 altogether. 27,500 of that was precept and 1,600 was ESBC grant. There is no guarantee that that grant will be paid this year, in which case, to even get the same amount as what we got last year, we would have to increase the tax rate. It's a complicated system that they use, but it may be that we could end up with less and not.
How do we, though, as often we represent the whole community, and against then protest from me, but what is to stop us saying, well, let's go for £40,000?
Because people in the village are going to have to pay for it.
No, I realise that, but then having said that, we could argue the other way, why are they going to accept as much as we've got down here now? Because there's no referendum on it, is there? We make the decision.
It's
Well, it has to be agreed with the SPC as well.
Yeah.
You just don't say, like, 50,000.
Yeah, it's still, we have to submit this to the
Oh, they
SPC.
have to agree as
Yeah,
well.
There's no guarantee.
No.
No, I didn't know.
You're the elected representative of the village.
Yes, I
and
realise that.
we're now discussing how much that we are going to ask ESBC.
No, yes, that's 1,600 or 2,000. What about the rest of it? Supposing we say to the village, ignoring the SBC, any number like the 37,000 we got there.
We're still going through SBC.
I suppose it's doing massive increases on our parishioners.
Yeah,
Well, no,
reason.
I know all that, I understand all that, but I'm just trying to get the principle right. Does that have to go to ESBC?
Yes,
Does
yes.
that still have
Yeah,
to go?
yeah.
Okay.
They will write to us either late December or early January and say, this is what precept was for last year. And this is what we recommend that you ask for next year. Now, if you want to increase that, you can, but you have to work out that that will increase your...
No, I realise that. There's nothing to stop us disagreeing with ESBC.
Yes, because the money's coming from them.
What the whole lot?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And they say that the great, don't forget you've got zero inflation. So it's very hard to argue for...
No, I understand all that, getting the principle. I thought, maybe we don't know, or I don't know, maybe the parish will say, yes, let's spend a bit more, even though there is no...
No, but that's not...
That's not what
No, but don't shoot me down, just give me the reason why.
Because it has to be approved by ECC.
Yeah.
So
they would
at the end
want
of the day,
to prove-
we've got no power at all.
No, we're asking them. Gorton has done all that and said that's how much it costs to run the parish, right?
No, it's the principle.
Yeah, so you can't, and so we now have to go and ask ESBC for that money so that we can operate the parish.
But don't they put that on the rate?
Correct.
Yes, therefore, we'll
Yeah.
come back to my point.
But that's assuming they will approve the figures that we've come up with. If they turn around and say, I'm sorry, you've got to cut it by 50%,
We have to go to
we have to cut it by 50%.
No.
So there's no point going to them and
No,
saying, right, we're going to increase it to £100,000. Everybody will put, yes.
We're not half our own house, as we
No.
say.
In your rate bill, when you get it, you will
It's
see
broken
the
down,
parts
yeah.
I've seen that.
and those are allocated. And they're mostly, a lot of it is to do with inflation plus a factor, isn't it? I think that's
Yes,
fair
that's
way
right.
to put it. And you're going to have a very difficult argument, arguing for another £5,000-10,000, because they're going to say, hang on, it's zero inflation.
Yeah.
Where are you spending your money?
No.
So that's the problem.
We've lost my question, we're not lost our own house.
Not in that sense, no. Not unless you want to be voted back in next time.
The premises have been transferred to parish council. It needs some work doing inside it. The ground is already let and it will be maintained by I think it's Roscoe Cricket Club next year. But the
We're going to take over.
pavilion will have to be brought up to standard.
So you've got someone to do it.
So it's about £10,000 estimate for the electric. That's all we put in. Soon they'll apply for grants and it's 50%. Hopefully they'll get more.
Yeah.
But I put 5,000
It was
as a
budgeted.
budget, yes.
If we have to match them, because we own it, so if
Yeah.
we have
I
to...
didn't know what it was for.
Yeah, no, I understand, because it's never been there
We've got to
before.
have this work done inside to bring it up to
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very
So
bad.
it could be used
Very
anyway.
bad.
That's right, yeah. So hopefully they will get grants and everything,
Yeah.
and if they come to us and say, can we match fund, Gordon's put the sum in there.
Well,
Once the cricket club is land registered to us, then Ian Morgan and I will start applying for some grants. And the next we start applying for grants.
Yeah.
Get as much as we can.
Yeah.
So in principle, it's last year's plus 2.5%, I suggest.
Yeah.
And therefore, at this point in time, I would suggest that we stabilise the grants to last year's level. I know Woodlands are asking for some more, but at this point in time, I don't think we're able to increase.
If I remember the tennis and bowls club, I thought that was a one-off thing.
It was.
We've got it on again for 2015-16, is that right?
No, that's this year.
That is this year.
That was a one-off.
Yeah, sorry.
There's zero this year,
Yeah.
for the next one.
So does that work?
So we defer a decision on the grant for the moment. Okay,
I don't think. Unless you do it next month, you'll have to do it.
next month. Okay, we'll come back with this next month. Whether the point will be clarified. Okay.
Well, yes, yeah, okay.
Well, we
you can
can...
just...
You can go through it, yeah.
It gives us time to look at
Look at
these.
it more bit of
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at, well, Linda's salary will go down because she's spending less time on the neighbourhood plan. For the moment, the grants I have assumed in line with last year,
Yeah.
and I've put in what I believe is a reasonable estimate for the office expenses, insurance, audit fee, courses and training, etc. Plus a lump sum for the cricket club, assuming that we've got to have the electric stove at its out,
Yeah.
and then get the maximum amount we can in terms of grants.
Yeah.
What are the electrics, the cricket club, the pavilion?
Yes,
Absolutely.
in the pavilion.
That really costs money, that's very small little place.
It's going to cost about 10,000.
Really?
Yes. Do we want?
Shelters and everything else.
Yes, could be refurbished.
If the process an estimate, that's what figure he's been given, but he can't do too much in terms of getting proper estimates.
No,
We
I
have
think
to
it's
walk
fine.
through
I quite understand that, yeah. Okay. It's just that I had property down to me 2,500 is about what's for selling. 3,000 quid, so we talk about 5,000 quid for place and everything.
Different from Joe Public.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
So if you look at I think we need to make a decision tonight, but there's just a couple of things that what Gordon was alluding to. One is the Woodland, the Marchington Village Hall. You got a cheque for £20,000.
Hopefully we'll get.
Well, held the cheque up.
It's 10.
And because of that, I think it's only right for this year only that you don't get a Precept of £2,000 from us.
Yep, I think that's reasonable, don't you?
Well, that's your decision.
Still going out.
And therefore, on Gordon's figures, technically we're saving £2,000. However, the cricket club, I think Gordon possibly underestimated how much it's going to cost. So I would like to put that £2,000 towards the cricket club.
Okay. Yes.
So the figures still remain the same, but
Right.
not being hard on the
It's your.
my concern this year is that, as Brian said, you know, inflation is nil. We're sticking 2.5% on, and there's quite a high probability that they'll say no to it.
I agree.
Well, if we don't get the rent,
The £20,000 obviously has to be spent on, or needs to be spent on energy-related items. But yes, no, I accept the decision.
It's not. Well, we have a little bit. We won't get 2,000. I sent that already.
Not at this point in time, I'm afraid.
No, regarding the shop and the Woodlands, I think those are a one-off grant, not to be Precept.
It's part of the community. We come back to that.
And therefore, the one-off grant, as and when the parish council get sums of money, as in with the village hall, you know, we are more than happy to grant you. When we get the money in, we'll then grant it out. But at the moment, there's no way that we can give the shop a Precept. That you can see the figures in front of you, and so there isn't the money there to give you. So from that point of view, that's not going to happen, and that basically will apply to the Woodlands at the moment. We just don't have the cash to offer you the grant at the moment, and if things change in the future, obviously you'll get to hear about it. So will the shop, and you know. I'm more than happy, and we've registered what you both want.
Can Brian Crowe help anymore?
Yes, can I just ask a question? I'm just not sure. I mean, I know obviously Marchington shop, obviously Marchington Village Hall belongs to the parish council. I just wondered why all that money went to the village hall, the 20,000. Can you answer that question?
The reason being is that money was donated by the solar farm.
Right.
As it's been alluded to, it's for energy efficient things, but it's for the inconvenience of the villagers, because the trucks, the building of it, the maintenance of it will all be going through Marchington.
We now have the pile driving, which is going on all day. Yeah.
So how many trucks are going through at the moment, Dan Jack saying? I think 6 or 8. So it's a nuisance factor basically, they're granting. So it has to go to that area. So it has to go to Marchington.
Because it's energy saving.
And it has to go to energy saving, and it has to be for that particular site, which is in Marchington.
And Marchington.
If it was in the Marchington Woodlands, be your lucky day.
and the village hall. By giving it to the village hall, everybody can use the village hall, so everybody in the village gets the benefit.
Yeah.
Well, there was nowhere else for the saving energy, was there?
Can I ask a question about the village shop then? It's obviously just been dealt with in about 30 seconds there. Can I ask, Mr Chairman, is this the Chairman's dictate, or is it not to be put to a vote of the whole council?
We've done it.
If that's the case, and if that's the way it's done, I understand. I don't accept it, but I understand it. But the considered approach.
This is a parish council meeting, And
I just asked a question, whether it's a dictate or a council vote.
We're in the middle of discussing the precept. I don't want to talk to us, but at this point in time, we as the parish council are discussing it, and as such, if you could hear us all out.
Anyway, we determined for January. Okay, finally.
Yeah. So going back. Yeah. So going
So,
back.
but actually, things depend on what actually ESBC
Come back and
come back to you as to how much additional monies there might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
If any.
Yeah, if any, that's right.
So until January, we don't know the real answer, do we?
No.
So, end of.
But what what Gordon's done, Brian, is we've got all the figures together. Thank you very much, Gordon. As you've said, Gordon, we've not increased any of the grants or anything, or all the bills, etc., that we use to operate the parish are all stagnant, which we know won't be the case, but that's what we're having to do. And so we'll submit that to ESBC and see what they say.
And then we'll vote on
And correct.
Right.
When they come back to us and say whatever the figure is, we'll finalise it.
Then adjust the figures if we want.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right.
But we can't make promises. Well, I think you're trying to say that we can't make promises on something we don't know the results of.
Correct.
So
it. We'll have to cut some money.
it's like a test match, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's our wish list, in fact, and that's what we want. And in previous years we've been lucky enough to get it, so hopefully we will again.
So you don't want me to send the letters out until we have
Correct.
got the agreement?
No.
Okay.
But if in good wind, everybody would get what they got last year, and that would be the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in a bad wind, then they'll be reduced. Right, so we'll vote on that in January. Well, thank you very much, Gordon, for your hard work, because I know it takes a lot to get all those together, so much appreciated.
Estimating is a very difficult task.
Yeah. Right, payments.
There we are. Can you see it? A bit close.
Right, this month's expenditure is
You need to go higher.
right. This month's money received is interest £13.81,
Gosh.
and the refund from the Village Hall Committee for the foyer carpet, didn't they get one? It's £291.67, so the total receipts of £305.48. The money paid out is to Clive for the Neighbourhood Plan, £856.53. Marchington Community Shop, £200. Blooming Gardens Landscaping, £457.77. Blooming Gardens preparations for the hedge. If you remember at the last meeting, we got all those.
The lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
We're coming to that, yeah. I have a comment on that. But anyway, it was £162. The Village Hall Committee room hire for the steering group, £62. The Marchington Village Hall Committee for the solar farm, Moisty Lane, £20,000, which is what we gave you. The Staffordshire Borough Council Association is £75. Henry Hall, £302.26. The parish clerk, £398, plus travel and office expenses of £299.
200 of that was the bond for the exhibition.
Yeah, Linda paid that up front.
In cash.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Her Majesty's Government Revenue and Customs, £22.80. So outgoings this month is £22. It's £22,836.
Could I ask a little question? Because I'm obviously not updated, so my apologies for saying to Mr. Mann that he's only received 10,000. You just said he received.
No, it's 20.
Yeah, they've now
So
taken
no,
I thought you'd only got 10. So
Well, that was the case as of 4 days ago.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
have
Well,
said-
actually, the village officer says you haven't received anything. It's after
Right.
this meeting.
Yes,
But,
fine.
when you get
That's
the
what you're
check.
about to sign the cheque.
Oh, I see.
You
with the
you
bonus.
actually had the remaining 10,000 paid.
This week.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
saw the email.
sorry about the time.
But you saw me with a cheque, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I never saw nothing, mate.
Right. So can I have a proposal and seconded, please? Thank you. Thank you. Right. Moving on to Silver Lane Playground.
Just hold on a minute, that was red, wasn't it?
Looking down. All inspected.
I did.
You
Silver Lane was
no.
Should I sign this one? I have some money.
Yeah. Don't give it to me personally.
Oh, Andrew, sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Have you seen the hedge?
Uh,
Trees or whatever they do.
Yes, I was one of the party,
Oh,
He's
as was somebody else in the audience here. who actually
all right.
Yes, so yes, it was a very rainy Saturday morning, so they didn't need watering it. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't, but I know it was supposed to be free, but it ended up costing us 162 quid.
Well, that's because you offered to use Birmingham to prepare
I think
the
the council offered
Well,
it.
so you would have,
Yeah, but
I think it's very well done. I think
I
that's
was
very
going to say,
well
let's
done.
give him a fighting chance.
and does it look okay?
Yes, I mean, these are only little things this time. They're a mixture of hawthorn, oak, hazel, and just other deciduous trees around the corner. Very lovely mixed hedge. Yes. Yeah. So yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, I know we discussed this.
The enthusiasm Well, I think it was to do with
It wasn't hanging around, that's for sure.
Between giving hectares to
And everything else is all right on the just some leaves.
Yes, you expected to start with you.
Yeah.
But no, they're playing with some good luck. There's no litter or scattered around.
I mean, a few cows on it, but they got.
Yes, I believe there was a cow on the cricket field actually this afternoon.
Indeed.
Yeah.
He likes the grass there rather than the field.
Well, the grass is always greener.
Cow on the cricket pitch.
Oh, they've been on and off all for weeks.
They've come across the winter.
Councillor Ford of Forest Side.
They come from,
Oh, there's that lovely gentleman again.
Yes, yes.
Yes, whose name will not be mentioned.
Forest Side.
yes, that was Richard, but he very kindly sent me the,
Title.
that's his report.
What's that?
Coping stones.
Oh, is that? That's what he sent me.
Yeah.
Lovely.
There was a goalpost on the wall.
And he said, yeah, he says 2 loose coping stones on front wall, see picture attached. And then the mole's still at work, and the small gate fencing facing the barracks and the football pitch does not latch properly, it requires adjustment. We've asked for it to be adjusted
Yes.
several times. I think it's a concrete post that actually moves, I think.
Right, so that's all okay. Green Lane.
I haven't got anything for Green Lane.
Do we know if the campers went there?
Oh, well, they won't be going till
I'm doubting.
next year. Yeah.
Not this time of year.
No, not this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 17 degrees the other night. I don't think it's warm enough for that.
So So the village hall, anything to report, please?
Obviously, I've said a few words about the village hall already. The village hall is certainly being very well used at the moment. Obviously, currently there's a mass production going on. But for other events, it is certainly also being well used, notably by exhibitions through Barton Wilmore, etc., and other things. Yes, and I've identified the fact that the next thing that the village hall are going to do is actually refelt the flat roof areas and also to infill the potholes in the rear car park with some concrete, just to infill that.
Is that literally concrete? That's what you mix?
It will be a concrete mix, yeah. Because what's been happening is that the gravel's been raked in there, but the cars drive on there just throws the gravel.
Yeah. Wasn't there something to do with the drains collapsing?
No, the drain was sorted out last year and there is a drain in the middle of the car park there, which occasionally gets covered up with gravel steps, but it's actually potholes is the issue. So it's been proposed to infill the holes with some concrete.
Great.
What percentage of the time is the village hall actually used commercially?
Commercially?
Did you buy the cars outside at night?
I'd say pretty, not every day, I can't understand, but a lot of it, yes, somewhere around there, yeah. And in fact, sometimes all three rooms are used.
Yes.
Yeah, by different parties.
Yeah.
Gardening club?
Well, we've had some neighbourhood plan meetings when actually we've been in the committee room and other meetings, things we go out in the main hall and the other, so yeah, it gets used.
Well, we're in here tonight.
Well, the space person.
Well, thank you very much. Highways and general purpose.
Yes, with highways, I re-reported the curbstones outside Church Lane. I saw a lady that lives on the corner and she asked me if I would re-report it. It has been reported before, so I have re-reported those. And she has concerns the cyclists going around the corner and being in front of their bike. The footpath department, when we were at the exhibition for Barton Wilmore for the Barrack side proposals, their concept plan, it came to light, and we've discussed this before, that footpaths numbers 50, 51, 52 and 53, which go from Silver Lane right the way through to the Barrack side, are impassable. And there was a gentleman there, and I think he's also contacted you,
He has.
Paul, about it. And so he's also sent me an email. So I contacted
Just to brief, what he's saying is the footpath is impassable, and for 17 years he's been using what he thought was the footpath, but it actually isn't.
Where's it run next?
Is that the perimeter of the fence?
Correct, yeah, he's been following the fence round,
yeah.
so...
Yeah.
Right.
Is that where the footpath is, actually?
Sorry?
Is that where the footpath is, outside the fence going round?
No, the footpath is actually,
It's back on the houses.
you'll see it
Across the
here.
fields.
The footpath.
No, I mean, there's a little footpath sign between that farm and...
If you look to 50, 51,
Don't
just
get
like
it.
the side of the barracks there, you see where the footpath is.
And then it goes, supposedly it goes up the hill, doesn't it?
Oh, no, it's up
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
sorry.
I had a word with Staffordshire County Council's footpath department, and they're going to send a ranger out to have a look at it with a view to getting the footpaths back in a good state of repair. Now, this isn't something that happens overnight, so yeah. But obviously now we've made the report, and I think the gentleman that contacted us as well, he also had been in touch with the Ramblers Association, so if they put their weight behind it, then probably the footpath will be opened up.
So we're going to wait for the Lord Ranger now.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realise they came out of Silver Lane.
Okay.
So we've really got one, haven't we?
Right, street signs, sorry, ESBC, street signs.
Yeah, with got an email from ESBC. We reported 3 street signs. One was Allen's Lane that was not put back after the houses at the top of Allen's Lane. Hall Lane, because it had never had Hall Road, because it had never had a street sign at all, and a local resident asked if one could be put there, and Thorny Lanes, which was on the outside of the house up the road here, but had been taken down. And after some emails backwards and forwards, she said she's liaising with their supplier for replacement signs for Hall Lane and Thorny Lanes, Hall Road and Thorny Lanes, and the Allen's Lane one, they'd spoken with Mr. Blore, and they've informed him that he's got to reinstall the sign for Allen, the sign for Allen's Lane. So if that doesn't happen, then we have to go back to him.
It's Hall Road.
It's Hall Road, yes.
That's what the ordnance survey for.
That's what the ordinance service says, yes.
Extraordinary. Green Lane always did it.
Anything. The postman hasn't got it on his list.
No problem. Thank you. Other organisations, police, well, they've obviously not turned up.
No, Josie Shepherd rang me and said she hoped to come, but obviously if she did it would only be for 5 minutes, but she obviously hasn't made it.
No problem. HM Prison Dovegate, the meeting was cancelled.
Yes, we've got a date now of the 19th of November, so I need to know who...
You've got 19 October, yeah. I wonder why that is.
No, it's definitely November.
Right.
Darren kindly pointed it out to me.
I got the light.
I'm sure you did. So, then I'm more than happy to go.
I'll go with you. By the time I went down to the prison and made my compliments to the prisoners and have them counted in front of us.
Just on that, have we heard any more about the escaping prisoners?
Escaping prisoners.
Well,
There's
a long-term report, isn't it?
Yeah,
Darren and I attended.
yeah, that's right. Have you, or have nothing more?
No.
So bring that up then.
He has been captured, but where they've actually got him is another thing. I take it not in Dovegate.
Manchester, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Manchester.
So does everybody else want to come on to that?
I think you only look at you normally.
No.
I mean, you're coming along.
Oh, I want to.
Yeah, you're coming then. Fair enough.
I'm from home.
Yeah.
Do you want me to
Nice
ask
cup of
PC
coffee.
Walter if he wants to join you?
Yeah, because it was in front of you as well last time, yeah.
Is it the usual time, 6?
Yeah, 6
6
o'clock.
o'clock
Yeah.
at the
Gates.
gate.
Yeah.
And that's when Drake can make it as well, so
Okay, all right.
hopefully they'll turn up.
Okay.
For your first.
And
Right.
you're going along as well, Paul?
Yeah, I'm coming, yeah. Nice cup of coffee.
Oh, good. And Chucky Biggies?
No.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
Flooding committee?
I haven't got anything
Nothing to
anywhere
report,
else.
right?
No.
Well, the general village shop,
I think we've covered that.
we've covered that then. Yeah. And at Marchington, that's still ongoing.
I haven't had the opportunity to chase it, have you?
And there's supposed to be a meeting taking place.
There was, wasn't there, at the time?
Between who?
Everybody.
Everybody considered. This is to talk to Mr. Beach.
Yeah, we didn't get a date for any meeting, did we?
Could you check something? Wasn't he available?
All they keep telling me is that it's not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, right.
I can chase
We'll
that
chase that up then, yeah.
for the next meeting.
The cricket club, that's it.
Yeah.
Officially ours yet?
Yes, it is ours, although it hasn't yet been registered with the land registry, but I understand from Phil Taylor that we are the actual owners, even though the land registry hadn't registered it. They're a few months behind on their registration, so it should he's hoping that it's going to be done before Christmas, but that doesn't stop us going ahead. Because
did you say that you were going to look into some grants to do
Yes, well, it is more really waiting confirmation, because if you start applying for grants, then they'll look at the land register, you earn it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to create this out until we know that it's on.
Yeah.
He will then secure an estimate. The electrics are the major thing. Some redecoration is required as well, but from his investigations, the electrics are the major item, which he will get a quote on, and then proceed to get all the council grants.
Because that's going to be a huge thing for us, and
Yes.
I don't know what everybody else thinks, whether or not we should have a sort of subcommittee like we have now.
Oh, yes. We had a meeting with Ian and Peter Ford and on Monday, and Ian is going to form a committee.
Yeah, because I think that would help him, because it's clearly no
yeah.
small task.
Yeah, and having people from the village as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well as,
well, it's very similar to the
Is it proposed to start using the cricket club and green from next year or not?
Well,
Tutbury are
Tutbury
going.
next year. The pavilion is that they will use the pavilion for matches, but it's really not up to scratch for use for functions, etc. yet.
No.
And in any case, we wouldn't want to compete with the village hall. But it is put up to scratch, and then whoever's using the cricket club can use it for their own functions. And we can charge for it then. We'll have to charge them.
And it's almost confirmed, I think, isn't it, that Uttoxeter will take it over in something like 3 years.
3 years' time, yes.
And
So
they will be applying for grants as well.
Yeah.
So that's liaising with them to see that they can get grant support as well to keep the cost of the parish council to
So who will continue to cut the grass and maintain
and then you talk to them and they take it over.
But
As Austin had been in the past.
I did get
We've
an
got Wollaston and we've got...
No, Rolston and stuff, they're finished.
Rolston and finished.
Oh, I see, they're finished, so we've got...
So it's only going next year.
And then you've talked after 3 years.
If Uttoxeter want to come out 3 years, if Tutbury will stay on until that time, that's fine.
Okay.
Otherwise, Ian will progress year by year. But the main thing is to get the cricket club being used, so the whoever's using it is responsible for mowing and keeping the place tidy, rather than a burden on the parish council.
Am I right in saying that Uttoxeter were going to start playing in 3 years' time, but they're going to do all the preparation and whatever else? Yeah, so they're actually starting doing something while Tutbury are...
Yes, yes.
I don't think Uttoxeter are moving that quickly, but certainly the plans are taken.
Yeah. Good.
I did get a quote from Blooming Gardens, on Gordon's request, that if we do have to have it mown, it would be about £120 when it is mown.
Each time?
Each time.
So is that every 2 weeks or?
Well, at the moment it's on similar lines as the Silver Lane, and that's every 2 weeks. Yes.
Can't imagine they wanted mowing with his tractor over it.
Well, not the actual square, that's something different. This is just the outfield.
And Peter Ford and Ian are going to have a joint visit to the pavilion, take an inventory, list any items that belong to the cricket club or something which can go, and list everything which will be there to stay.
Right.
And a bank account will be transferred with a few £100 in it as well.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. And the insurance is now...
The insurance has been up and running since July. So that's covered. So that saved us money on the Precept, because we used to give them the insurance money.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you very much. Forest side footpaths.
No, we've got to do the planning training course feedback. I want to know what you all learned.
Not a lot. It was exactly. That was what I was about to say. Yeah. The only thing that was useful was with a couple of email addresses and web addresses, which I'll send off to you, and they may be used to, where they're talking about specific planning problems, or not problems, but questions that arise. So I can send those to you, and you haven't got that paper with you, have you? No. So I'll send them off to you, and then you can just decide. Stick them on one side. You already know it, or it might be useful.
So you're not all volunteering to write the comments then?
It was good. I thought it was really useful.
Yeah.
About sort of saying, something saying about the smoke that's coming across. I think that's irrelevant. That's not the planning matter. You've got to deal with the real hard facts of planning. And
views don't count.
Views don't count. Yeah, that sort of thing. Hedges counted though, didn't they? That was the odd
They
thing.
did, and also, of course, you must make sure your hedge or your fence is not more than 2 metres in height, otherwise you can be castigated or something like that.
So I thought it was quite good.
Yeah, you
actually.
don't have a right to review.
No.
It's worth going
It was
to,
all
it's really common
bits and
sense.
bobs. It was good.
But a lot of it, yeah, a lot of it, Darren, was common sense in fairness to Reg. It's true, isn't it?
Well, it's true.
It
It tends to
brings
be
it
other things, don't you?
Yeah.
When you get an application, like,
But
you
what's,
know, is
what's
that garage
applicable?
going to be turned into a house? Well,
That's right.
You
you
said,
can't
I
comment
can't
on
comment
it.
on that, should we say?
And we talked about things like people painting their houses bright pink.
And change of use.
I'm not joking, we did.
Glass,
So,
glass house.
glass houses, conservatories and this kind of thing. So it was useful, yeah.
You got something out of it, okay.
Yeah, the one thing, I don't know whether you picked it up, was about that trying this petition so that parish councils can appeal against planning petitions.
Yeah.
Third party.
Yes,
I
that's
think that's something
the
you just
Stanley
Yeah,
Code
yeah,
Council
yeah.
Association bulletin said that out.
No, at the moment, once a plan has gone through, we can't do much. So what it's offering is that we can apply as an objector, as a third party, which can
So the parish councils.
Yes.
Mm.
Right, thank you. Thank you for your attending.
First, I haven't really had a chance to do any more on that. It may be that if something of this come to fruition in the ballot blocks, there may be an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Did you actually pursue Andrew Griffiths again?
No, I haven't had a chance to do that. Do you want me to go back?
I personally think you should, yeah. Because he did make lots of promises.
I did, yeah.
And he will again in 5 years.
Yeah. Coming back to see you then. So you look forward to that, Andrew.
Woodlands distributor.
We're nearly there.
Really?
Yeah. I've got all the details to pass on to Linda, because she will have to fill in brings the back
Oh,
bill
yeah.
payment bill onto that. So there's all the invoice addresses and delivery addresses and the actual cleans water, and also a form to sign, memorandum of understanding, and in there it requires a contact phone number. Okay, so that's not work.
Sorry?
It requires a contact phone number,
Yeah.
landline. I've had a word close to. I've had a word with John Bostock round the corner. He's happy to have him in the book.
Oh, good. That's good.
Well done.
So that's that. And the DFIB is $638 plus that. Sorry,
Is that-
650. 650 plus that is the DFIB. The cabinet is 525 plus that.
Crazy, isn't it?
And then there's obviously a small fee electrician just connecting it up.
Yeah.
Billy Shaw's got an electrician that can do that. He's done all the details apparently, so that's okay.
Just seems a shame, though.
Do you know where it's going?
Yes, it's going, as you go out now, to go just on the left hand side outside, because there's sort of lines on there to come on and off. So
Is it fixed in the wall or on the wall?
On the wall.
You're just sort of box on the
It's
wall.
too good if you want.
yeah, so the same usual.
Yeah.
And the Billy Shaw committee. Two of your compatriots, yes, two of your compatriots volunteered that they would do the monthly checks.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. The solar farm at Moisty Lane, as we just discussed, you've got your money now.
You're in the money now.
The next one, you perhaps haven't got this on yours, I've got to put it on afterwards, is the flower boxes. I just wanted to make sure that you'd all seen them, that Henry has removed, Church Lane, Silver Lane and Bag Lane, B5017 on the corner.
Can you thank him from us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't they?
Yeah, but still.
Is it possible to add any other flower boxes? There is the one at the bottom of Moisty Lane, top of Station Road, actually one that I suspect it was Eric Rhodes who actually made originally, but That one, there is one there. But
Oh, if you want to replace it.
yes, and that would be another Brighton Road. Yeah.
So it's Moisty Lane.
It's the bottom of Moisty Lane at the top of
Station.
station there.
Okay.
One of the Jack said, it looks all right to me.
Yeah, it does.
Great. I'll move on to correspondence.
There we go.
Well, starting correspondence, the brief is the highway winter operations.
Had this by email.
Yeah, this is what we were all saying, basically saying that the gritty routes are the same as they were last year. And if you weren't gritted last year, you wouldn't be gritted this year.
So is the fleet still 42 trucks to cover the whole staff? That's what it was last year.
I think the fleet is, has all been serviced.
Right.
But it doesn't say how many. So, do you want to ask that question?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Just a query, wasn't it?
Well, the number of trucks has been decreasing every year.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, if you lived in Sutton Coldfields, as I did, and Birmingham Council thought you were too rich to be gritted, we do quite well, believe me. They didn't used to do any gritting in Sutton Coldfield. They stopped at the Birmingham boundary, even though it was run by Birmingham. So I think the gritting here is not bad.
Speaking for the residents at our end of the police, the most important thing is that the grid boxes are refilled.
Yeah, true enough, because you're going up a slope as well.
We've not had yours done.
Yes, it's full at the moment.
Yeah,
But
so I've just done ours recently.
Yeah.
Perhaps we'll get more gritting now. They've got to go up to Salem. I don't know. Is that true? Or
Who
would that be the case? I don't know.
knows?
Yes, there's a pile at the corner here, isn't there?
Yeah, this last year they started putting some on the corners as well.
Yeah, they put little piles. There's one your.
Yeah, can I just say, I mean, the main concern we have is sort of Gorsby. There was a tanker driver stuck there 14 hours last year. We tried to get grit from sort of staff at Union Toxteth. We offered to go and collect it and get this tanker driver out, but he was stuck there. They had to come from Shrewsbury to get him out in the end. And he was stuck at the bottom of, I mean, there isn't any grit put at the bottom of Gorsby Hill. And that's one of the areas, I mean, the other ones have been supplied around because carers do come to the elderly down here. And I know Mrs Shaw, it was when her mum was alive, and the carers were coming up through Marchington, coming up and going through this lane here, up to her, you know, every day. And they did have great difficulty, you know, when it wasn't gritted up there. It is done on the corners now, which made it better for the carers to come through from Marchington and go up through to Kingston, because I know there's elderly people, you know, up here and up this lane here, but they do come to Ivy Cottrell's, another one. They had great difficulty, you know, getting up there and then through to Kingston. So it is an area of course.
Does your milk tanker have to go up Gorsty Hill then?
He did, because he couldn't get up through the other ways. That was the
He
only
doesn't
way.
come from the Bromley Road then?
He does try and do that route, but he couldn't do when the snow was that bad that particular year. We did try and get him out and pull him up. We couldn't. We had 2 tracks and we couldn't. We
So
couldn't,
would
we
one or
couldn't
two
move it.
additional grid boxes help the situation?
They did put some extras in.
They
last year,
did
didn't
put
they?
some. Yeah, they did put, you know, a few around that.
There's
that
one
day.
at this end, isn't there?
It's
Sorry,
if anyone is
the
stuck
other
in
end.
a real emergency, it does help if people don't come and empty them.
People don't do that in the Woodlands, do they?
They do.
Do they?
People
Oh,
sleep up.
In the night?
Yes, they do. And they empty the grit boxes.
you're not joking.
Oh, I'm not joking.
God, I can't afford you. No, give up.
Anyway, you've also had the email for the countryside parks and green spaces. Lindsay got a comment on it? No. Have a look at that. Neighbourhood Forum invitation for the 25th of November, was also sent to you.
Yeah, I think Julia said that she would be going, and I think it'd be nice if someone went with it. This is for applying for the grant money for the Silver Lane extra equipment. It goes forward.
I'll go if there's nobody else looking.
I can't, I did offer, but I'm not doing
I've got something else on.
If you want to go, Brian, but I certainly think what she's wanting to do, have some support, so I'm more than happy to go.
You want to go?
No, I didn't say I wanted to, but I'm still yeah.
Well, you volunteer, so you got whoever you want on these.
Oh, wait, sorry, I thought you were looking for
We
something.
were.
Yeah, now you've got
No,
two.
two.
You need to.
Trying to run backwards through the back door.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered with it. So.
Would you be all right going?
I don't mind.
Yeah.
That.
Good.
Right, we're on.
That's very kind of you.
I'll tell you where you're going then, so.
And
That was the letter from...
oh, that was it. Okay, yeah.
We've got this one.
Yes, it is that.
Yeah.
Then
List.
Hang on, go on to the one that you wrote to on the 31st of October. No, it's no longer relevant, it's mixed up with it.
That was the letter she wrote.
As a member of the parish, I wish to raise a matter about transparency. Marchington Parish Council makes no information available to parishioners about the basis on which it makes grants or monetary awards to organisations in the parish. Many parish councils publish clear and transparent rules for themselves and to help people applying to them, some examples of which I attach from Henstridge and other parish councils, each of which is different in some respect, but all easily downloaded from the web. I understand that transparency publication of grant awarding policies regarded as best practice according to the National Training Strategy for Town and Parish Councils, and it is recognised as such within the MTS certificate in local council administration. I believe it would be in interest of the parish council and its parish councillors to be seen to address this issue quickly and clearly in order to improve precipitations of objectivity and openness set out in the Code of Conduct on the Marchington and Marchington Woodlands Parish Council website, and to provide a sensible advice to pensioners parishioners by expanding upon statement within its stated orders. And she's quoted a paragraph out of the book. I suggest that this document is prepared to be added to the website and all current and future recipients of grants, together with councillors, adhere to it. Yours sincerely, Liz Morgan.
There's another one I've got too. I haven't seen that one. Dated the 31st of October. Addressed to you.
That's what I just read out.
Yeah. See any of the wording.
So I apologise.
No, that's the one that you guys forwarded.
Yeah. You want me to read it out?
Yeah.
I think
Dear-
you probably should, yes.
Dear Councillor Nixon,
If you don't want it, it's addressed to you.
I'm happy to.
Okay.
It is with huge disappointment, upset and concern that I read your comments in the Chairman's monthly report about Marchington Village Shop in the November issue of Marchington News, specifically that you say that footfall seems to be reducing. In retail, it is vital that one's customers feel that they are shopping at a successful business. It's all about confidence, and with these words at a stroke, you have undermined confidence in the shop. Whilst I have no doubt that you meant to be helpful, it is really very unhelpful indeed to what our customers and potential customers will think about the shop, leading up to a vital sale period in November and December. Furthermore, there are no facts to substantiate this assertion. We do not measure footfall and we have no evidence that it is reducing. Footfall is not the same as sales revenue. As I have already explained in person and in a letter sent to the parish clerk, the major factor in the reduction of sales revenue has been the withdrawal of newspaper contract from Dudgate Prison. Therefore, I'd like you to retract this comment in the next edition of the magazine, please, and I would be grateful if you would use the word success or successful when you do so. This shop has been brought to life and kept the kept alive by thousands of hours of dedicated work from more than 50 volunteers over 5 years, including all members of its board who have given very considerable time, week after week, all for free, because they believe in providing the service now and for the future of the communities of Marchington and Marchington Woodlands. It's truly ironic that the chairman of the parish council of the two villages has undermined that future by a thoughtless something.
So, probably needs some response, if there's one letter.
Yeah, well, in response to that, she seems to have forgotten the fact that the parish council has donated £4,200 to the village shop. That seems to have been totally ignored in all these conversations. I'd just like to mention that.
Well, fair enough, so put that in your response.
Right, I appreciate that. But that's all the comment I'm going to mention on that letter now.
Yes, okay, that's fine. I think or she feels very strongly about it, and I'm her chairman, so I'm her chairman, I support her. So I understand exactly what you're saying. We need to just sort of settling down quietly and some kind words next time we write to the parish magazine on it to come to the point here. And then you make your point that you just said. That will clear the matter.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for reading it out.
Yeah, it's okay, no problem.
Can we go back to this? Because she has actually suggested that there are several policies by different parish councils. One's Henstridge, which is
No, hence,
Sturminster, I don't know
somewhere
where
down south.
Lindgate and Ivor. I don't know where they are.
I was in
Buckinghamshire.
Yeah, I mean, normally this sort of thing is something that's undertaken by larger parish councils than ours is. We do have the local council administration book that we use, and also NELC give us guidelines. Now, it's up to you if you want to put together something. And she did send me an email where she says she's actually suggesting that she does it for you anyway in the email that she sent.
If you want to send us a draft, it would be a starting point.
I personally do think it's a good idea. The precepts are very motivated topic at the moment. I think it's a good idea to have something transparent and showing that.
Someone, I mean, the thing is,
That's I agree it is, and I don't actually believe it's not transparent at the moment. We don't make huge grants, and if we start putting it all in, you know, ticking every single box, we might end up nobody will actually qualify because we have to tick all the boxes. As you can see from the precept, what we discussed earlier, there is only a couple that are actually precepted, but the rest are expenses the village or the parish incurs. And so, because of that, and I hope we've explained a little bit more, if you
yes, I understand
where the money comes from and how we get it and how we have to give it out. It isn't a great pot of money that we're hoarding and not giving out.
I think the main thing we talk is that we haven't really got a say. It all goes back to SBC. Is that I didn't know.
Yeah, and so if we start laying the law down, and we are only a small parish, it's not as if we've got all that money that we give to hundreds of different things.
But I do think we do have to be transparent as to how, obviously some things are set because there are a liability. But,
we need to be careful going down that route because leading down that route, there may well be.
I mean, if you look at this, Paul, this is very vague. The parish council awards grants at its absolute discretion to organisations which can demonstrate the following: providing a service, enhancing the quality of life, improving the environment. Now, you can argue all that as to either a shop or a service for collecting extra private rubbish or anything you like. But the thing is, it's rather on the vague side. But you could do something like that. I don't see the problem in actually having a guidance on grants, but you'd have to be very legally orientated and make sure that something like that is not then disputed, because it's a very vague statement. Do you know what I mean?
But isn't the answer the other way of doing it? And maybe we do it already, just publish it in the parish magazine or something. That's what I'm saying.
At the end of the day, when it's agreed.
Yes, but
Not-
no,
not
I'm quite agree.
before it's agreed.
No, I'm quite agree when it's agreed. So this-
Well, when it's agreed, it does actually go into the minutes.
No, but yes, it's a question where people read something. Fine, we manage to people do elsewhere.
But theoretically, it's on the notice board, so
Yes.
it
It's on the,
should be on there longer than
Yes.
the
It's on- it's on-
lifespan of the parish magazine.
it's on the
Yeah.
website,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
Well,
where
you
it
go to
should
the
be.
website, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
So it is,
Yes,
it is public knowledge.
transparent.
But I know what you're saying, Andrew, is that some guidelines to
Yeah,
put
But by the same token, you could find that you're excluding someone just by having that
let's
policy.
go.
Another one says, I just looked at it very quickly, but another one says it's totally at the discretion of the parish council, which is just like saying, we may not, we may
do
not.
sort of what we do now.
Yeah, so it's, but I agree in a way, perhaps there should be a guidance on the ground, so it cuts through it, but it's,
If you do it, I think
If
it
you
should
do
be
it,
done by the councillors.
Oh yes,
That's
absolutely.
fine.
yeah, no, I'm just saying that as a general thing, there's nothing wrong with it, but you should word it in such a way that nobody's coming along and saying, you know, I need someone to look after my dog or something. So it's got to be sensible.
Well, I'll have a look at it and I'll draw a few things up.
Yeah.
I'm looking
And
at
I would also look at the fact that, which Linda quite correctly said, it depends on the size of the parish council. The parish council
Yes.
got a precept of 250,000 quid. It's quite different from us with 34.
That's right, yeah.
Yes, well, it's pretty-
And it has to fit in with the
You're
local
working within the
council
local council.
administration. And as I say, you know, now do give information on section 137, which is what most of these grants come under.
Well, it's typical that planning meeting we went to, different sized councils that were there. Obviously, some have got pots and pots of money.
Yeah.
And some were very, very small, weren't
Well,
they?
some have spent a fortune on
Yes, some
planning
got a
advice.
£50,000 on a planning appeal. Maybe that's what it does.
We use budget.
We won't be doing that. Anyway, the final thing on our
Is it possible to have a question from the floor, or is that not allowed at this point? Oh, I can wait till the end, till any other business, I don't mind.
yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, sure. Cool.
Finally, you've got fit for farming. Which is,
It's quite
you want to read that?
Is it suggesting we should
Yeah,
start
He
farming?
said it.
Yeah, we've got plenty of them.
Do. Right. Is that thing going to take time? Good out.
I thought it's quite condescending. Something produced by Stafford County Council.
Put your back in the eyes.
Not too,
Yes, Jane.
Reg, don't forget, if you buy a farm, you can use it as an inheritance provider.
yeah.
All you need is
agricultural.
That's right.
What are you looking for?
The
Buy some woodland. It was a good cadget one time. Buy woodland.
Yes, it was. I'm not sure it's still is.
Yeah, still is a bit.
That was very good. Schedule B.
You've got a correspondence there, you've lost it.
Your fault.
This is Jane Hilton. This is to do with the planting. Yeah. Hello, Linda. Thanks for your help on this. This is to do with the hedge planting. Yeah. Thanks for your help on this. Hopefully, care will be taken in future. Could you also mention to whoever cuts the grass around the village that I'll be planting a few hundred bulbs very soon? Or already spoken to Reg about them.
You remember?
I didn't.
Oh, good. You looked a bit vague.
No, it's after the
Keep reading.
Yeah, could they not cut any of the foliage down until at least the end of July? This will give the bulbs a chance to make the flowers the following year. Whilst on the subject of planting, I've noticed the area next to the bush shelter could do with some permanent planting. I've heard that people who have been kindly manning it are struggling to keep it going as dry and shaded. I'd be willing to take this area on by planting bulbs, ivy and ferns. Would the parish council fund this? Over to you. It's cost us a fortune to get rid of the ivy.
Yeah, we don't want ivy. I do have concerns because Henry looks after the bush shelter area. So I have concerns. I also have concerns of Henry not being able to mow where she's planting bulbs because we have the best kept village competition between May and July. And if you can't cut the grass, then obviously that's a problem.
And also, there seems to be two strands of thought, whether you should cut the top of the bulb off, or you should wrap it up and tie it up, or whether you should just leave it to die slowly. And whatever you read seems to give a different verdict. Cut it.
Well,
I think the questions are, one, do you want the bulbs planting?
I think bulbs do provide colour and foliage. It's a question of choosing where they go, perhaps not where they're going to get mowed.
Really
And not mowed until the end of July.
If it's an area of grass that's going to be mowed, that's normally mowed, then I would thought that they will be mowed. But if she plants bulbs where areas where they're not normally mowed, then isn't that the solution?
Okay, and what about the bus shelter?
no, I think Henry should continue.
Because there's other things that need attending to the bus shelter as well.
It's not just the board, So, could you leave that with Henry? Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll email her
I'll
back
give
then.
it, please.
Yeah, she sent me down to me.
So are we saying we're supplying, we're going to pay
No,
for
we're not
bulbs?
supplying.
No.
No, we're not.
Sorry?
She wants to know if we're going to fund it.
That's a no.
The answer is no.
I thought she actually got the bulb. She's got the bulb already.
No, she's asked us to fund. Would the parish council fund this?
I think it was a bit around the bush shelter, wasn't it?
Was that-
Right, I see. Yeah.
We don't
The bulbs came with the trees.
Yeah, I think it probably was a bush shelter, in which case it's gone away
Yeah, right.
if she's already got the bulbs. But obviously we needed to put the bulbs where it's not going to be mowed.
Yeah, in the embankments and things like that.
Yeah,
good idea.
that's a good place. Right, that's it for correspondence.
Mixing daffs and tulips, so they come at different times.
Oh, Nick,
Folks,
any other business?
I don't make a big deal about this, but I would like you to help me understand this business of transparency and clarification. I was asked to come here tonight, Isabel's obviously done the same from her respect, with a considered request to be discussed for a precept. From what I can see, it's absolutely not been discussed and certainly been not voted on, and I'd just like to, from a point of transparency, understand, so I can feed back and get this right next time, is what can happen. Is it just, Mr Chairman, that as you've decided tonight that's not appropriate and therefore that's the end of the business, or is it appropriate to be put to the full council and voted on? Because at the moment
What are you
nothing's happening.
referring to?
I'm referring to our request for a 2000
You've
precept.
come tonight, as Isabel, to request the council, or the parish council, to give you money. We've heard and listened to what you've done. We have a precept that has been worked out. We've heard your comments. You've heard what we've said, that we can't make any decision till we know what the ESBC is going to give us. When we know what they're going to give us from the request that Gordon has done, we'll be in a stronger position. We can't say to you, yes, there's your money.
No, I understand that.
Right,
And I'm
so we
confident-
can say no more than
No,
what
I'm
we've
confident in
said.
that, but what I would love to understand is, once you understand what that contribution from county from the borough is, then what would be the next, so that I can feed back to our group, what is the next thing? Does it go to a discussion and a vote, or is it just a chairman decision? That's all I'm asking. I'm asking a question because I don't know, else I'm
That's
ask the question.
Discussion of that in January when we know what ESBC.
You've asked for £2,000, right? And Isabel's asked for £3,000. We've noted that. There's no more we can comment on it because we don't know if we're going to get that money.
I know that.
So
I
what
understand.
what else can we say?
I'm not asking you to say anything, I'm just asking for someone to explain to me what the next phase of the process, when you know how much money you've got. So, of those applications for precepts and grants and monies, I'm just trying to understand, without controversy, how is it then decided in the group, in the council?
Because we vote on it.
That's exactly the question I'm asking. No more, no less. It's discussed and voted on, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's.
There would be no.
I'm not trying to make a big deal here. I genuinely did not understand how it would be decided. So, if that's the case, I now understand and can feedback.
Do we vote on each item by item, or do we just vote in total? That's fine, yes, that's how I understood it to be, isn't it?
Well, I think what you do normally is you agree the figures and then you vote.
Well, quite,
the
yes.
whole thing.
We can discuss it first,
That's how it's
and
done.
then put the vote
When
through.
the ESB position as well.
Yeah.
January is the time. January is the time that any decision can be made, and until then, it's in abeyance.
I now fully understand. I did not before I asked it.
No, you've got the same as me.
This is no loaded question. It's an innocent question.
Can I ask this one?
Just one second. We're going to any other business, right?
I'll look at it.
I'm conscious of.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
A totally different subject, but no topic. At the corner of Hall Road and Elms Lane, we have a lamppost, which is fully in place. We've not seen any sign of light yet. I just wished I could ask Parish Clerk if she's had any notification on the progress.
No, I will chase it up for
Due to the dark nights, people are now falling over them.
And they are.
Yeah, I'm sure they
I
are.
think they did say it would take a while.
Yes, we were not under any illusions.
Yeah, but at least, yeah, I'll chase that up for you.
No, I was just looking for a feeling reason to write.
Have the tweets
Dark
been
nights.
replanted?
No,
No.
No.
but he's got till March, hasn't he? The planting season's November to March, so he's got till March. So we can't really chase that till
Till
March.
March.
So in the meantime, we're working on the streets.
In limbo again.
I've got a second question, and it really is a refresher of my memory. The pile driving of the stakes for the solar panels is now commenced, and it continues all day.
Is it noisy?
Well, you can hear it from where I live, but yeah.
It's not very loud,
No, well,
But you can hear it.
Depends how near you are to it.
Yeah, indeed. I just wonder, yes, you can hear it back down in the bottom of the village as well. What are the hours of working that were agreed in planning?
I'd have to look
Yeah.
that up, but I can look what the hours are.
Please, yeah.
Do you have
It
any?
would appear that it ceased around 6 p.m.
That's what I recall as being the time they would
Yeah.
stop.
I'd have to look it up, but
They don't
8
stop.
p.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
we have got the contact if there is any
Yeah.
problems, haven't we?
Yeah. I'm just asking this question in anticipation that other residents will be asking me. So I wasn't fall down.
Yeah, I'll look that
You're that
up
much
for
nearer,
you.
aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look that up for
And
you.
I've got the escort paper in front of the lorries and saw them the other day.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Darren?
No.
Red.
My very quick one is that I just don't know the date. I'm next meant to be looking at Forest Side and sort of language is for the
Sorry?
playground.
Playgrounds.
Yeah, playground. I don't know what dates I'm next year on schedule to go and
We've sent the
We've
list
done the
out.
list out.
Sent the list out.
I'm not forgotten.
Well, we only go up to December and then I have to do a new list, so
So I'm in December.
if you're not in December, then you'll be on the new list.
Normally that's in my diary, but that's not in the diary. Nothing else there.
I have no other business, sir.
You
December, Brian.
Brian Hall,
And Gordon.
Silver Lane, and Gordon.
Gordon.
Is it less than that? Next list comes out.
Yeah, December.
No,
Any other business?
no.
In that case then, we close the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. I was just saying you were.
Thank you all for the call.
Yeah.
We'll take the extra minute to make it easy.
Everybody okay?